Houston Texans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jags are favored by 9. Houston is just absolutely beat up. And Derek Stingley just reported we have a hamstring injury. He's going on IR, which is unfortunate. Jacksonville, every single week, we're going to be talking about their receiver matchups against opposing cornerbacks. This makes it just that much more difficult for the Texans. C.J. Stroud making his third career start here, first time going up against the division rival Jaguars. 9 points here for the Jags, coming off an 8-point loss to the Chiefs last week.
Yeah, Stroud on the injury report as well with a shoulder, I think, but that was the case last week as well. And then he came out there and threw for over 300 yards. So I wouldn't be too concerned about Stroud. The key to the game really is what we talked about coming out of last week, which is, like, can Houston avoid getting in that negative game flow state? Can they avoid getting down multiple scores early where the entire game plan has to change and they have to air it out and go crazy and, just start throwing the ball and just making everybody's life more difficult? But the collection of receivers the Texans have are quietly starting to emerge as a really nice group. I mean, Nico Collins had a huge game last week. He's sort of maybe on his way to a big breakout, but Tank Dell was their leading receiver in terms of targets now that he's been bumped up the depth chart. Robert Woods, not where he used to be when he was, one of the better receivers in the NFL with the Rams, but is looking way more like that guy than the Tennessee version of Robert Woods. That as a trio is a really nice group of receivers. And even beyond them, there's flashes of talent. John Mechie caught his first pass after his cancer diagnosis and battle after he got drafted. So the Texans have got weapons to play with, and Stroud has shown last week that he's able to drop back and heave the ball around, and there may be some bad plays in there as well, but they can be productive on offense. The thing working against them, though, is that, Jacksonville lost that game to Kansas City. Okay, it was an 8-point loss. When you start diving in, one of the big things sort of in vogue at the moment amongst the nerds, the real analytics people, is these kinds of like adjusted score, right? Like, oh, your actual score was this, but who was winning the game morally? Who had the moral victory in the game statistically, right? And they're kind of adjusting based off...
What was the real win?
Yeah, like based off all these pieces of information, who was actually the better team in the game, no matter what the score said. And all those kind of data points say that, like, Jacksonville should have won that game comfortably. Which, look, the concept is a little ridiculous, right? But it tallies with what you saw in that 4 separate times Trevor Lawrence put the ball in the hands of his receivers in the end zone-ish, right? And they couldn't quite get the feet down. So it's not a touchdown. And okay, one of those, it's just those are football plays. They bounce your way. They don't bounce your way. But when you do it 4 times and they all bounce the other way, those are the kinds of plays that change the outcomes of games, right? So it's not that you say, well, look, it's a win for Jacksonville, but it shows that they might actually be better than that score indicates. And if they are, this is a real formidable team for Houston to go up against.
That's what people think of PFF sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But you just said about the actual score. You described why, right? Again, we're not saying, hey, just miss. It's just contextually, the Jags were right there. There's one other thing that stood out to me. The Jags secondary, we have a stat called perfectly covered plays. You look at each player, is there anybody open? The Jags defense has been one of the best at just playing coverage play by play on the back end, leaving few options for opposing quarterbacks. That's a bit of a surprise. That's Tyson Campbell and Darius Williams and Trey Herndon all playing pretty well. Andre Sisco's made some ball hawking type plays on the back end so far this season. I keep being concerned about the Jags pass rush. It's usually Josh Allen and friends. Josh Allen is questionable in this game. You should be able to have success against this Texans offensive line. Laramie Tunsil probably back at left tackle, but whether Josh Allen can go or not, I think the Jags just need more up front. They need something from Trayvon Walker. They need those former first-rounders to step up. Again, I'm a broken record. But I think that matchup will be interesting because you mentioned the success the Texans receivers have had. Jags are playing well in their back seven, and you probably weren't expecting just a 17-9 game against the Chiefs last week, but that was the type of battle that they played. So to all those points, I think the Jags will find out. They were good offensively in week 1, quirky stuff in week 2. I think they'll put points on the board. Trevor Lawrence is playing well despite the stats last week. The matchup to watch for me, rookie battle, Will Anderson rushing against Anton Harrison at right tackle for the Jags. Harrison's had some struggles. The other Jags have had some struggles up front as well. So see if the Texans can get some pressure. But I like the Jags against a banged-up Texans defense. Jags should put points on the board. They're at home, favored by 9. Where are you going in this one?
I'm buying into this idea that Jacksonville are better than they showed last week, even though they ran the Chiefs fairly close. So I think they're going to be way too much for Houston.
Yeah, I'll say that as well. I don't know that Derek Stingley being hurt is going to change the line a whole lot. It might make it a half point or something. But yeah, I'll take the Jags to cover the 9 as we're live right now.